While the Israel-Palestine crisis has dominated news around the world for the last few weeks, another huge story has slipped under the radar: the chaotic outcome of the most recent Israeli election. So let's unpack what happened and the potential coalition that could oust Netanyahu right now. Before we start, if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the channel. We release a bunch of videos every week explaining global issues, from the ongoing Israel situation to how countries are coping with declining populations. Thanks for your support, for subscribing and ringing the bell. Before getting into the ins and outs of this year's election results, it's important to understand the context. Israel's political system is designed to incorporate many different parties into government, meaning that coalitions are the norm. As there are 120 seats in Israel's parliament, 61 members are required to form a majority. Currently, the parliament is headed by Benjamin Netanyahu, the leader of the centre-right Likud party. Netanyahu has been in this position since 2009, although in recent years, his position has become less and less tenable. Ever since 2019, Netanyahu has tried and failed to secure a stable majority in parliament. And as such, he's had to lead the country in the capacity of a caretaker prime minister, meaning that his powers have been limited. Despite 4 elections in only 2 years, this situation has yet to be resolved, as in every election, Netanyahu's Likud party has won a plurality of votes and seats, but has been unable to form a majority coalition. This is largely because Netanyahu is facing 3 charges of corruption, including fraud, breach of trust, and bribery. These first cropped up in 2016, with Netanyahu being officially indicted in November 2019. We're not going to explain the charges in detail right now. All you need to know for the purposes of this video is that they're the main reason that Netanyahu can't get another party to form a majority coalition with him. Anyway, the most recent election happened in March this year, and again, Netanyahu won a plurality of 30 seats, and as such, he was given 28 days from April 6th to negotiate with other parties and form a coalition. In May, this deadline passed, with Netanyahu unable to form a governing coalition, so the Israeli president handed over the responsibility of coalition forming to another party leader. This time it went to Yair Lapid, the leader of the second largest party in parliament, the Yesh Atid party, who won 17 seats. So Yair Lapid had 28 days from May 5th to form a majority coalition, which was always going to be difficult, given that his party only had 17 seats to begin with. Anyway, yesterday, Wednesday the 2nd of June, the last day before the deadline elapsed, reports emerged that Yesh Atid had somehow managed to cobble together an 8-party majority coalition featuring all of these parties. The most surprising names on this list are Yamina, which is led by tech millionaire and ex-finance minister Naftali Bennett, and Rayam, which is an Arab party led by ex-dentist Mansour Abbas. While most of the other parties on this list are centre or even centre-left parties, Yamina is a more right-wing Israeli nationalist. Their leader, Naftali Bennett, is a religious nationalist who advocates for the Israeli settler movement and has ruled out any 2-state solutions, which makes it all the more surprising that Yamina will be in coalition with Rayam, an Islamist party who advocate for a Palestinian state with East Jerusalem as their capital. In fact, the only thing these parties seem to agree on is getting Netanyahu out, which seems to be enough. Because at 11:30 p.m, with just 30 minutes to go until the deadline, Lapid notified the president that he'd successfully negotiated an 8-party coalition. As part of this agreement, Bennett, the right-wing nationalist we mentioned a moment ago, will be Prime Minister for the first 2 years of the session, and Lapid will take over for the second 2, with Bennett then becoming Interior Minister. Rayam agreed to this on the condition that they continue negotiations over the Kamenetz law and the unrecognised Bedouin villages. And that's because despite this law seemingly just being about planning, the party consider it to be discriminatory and used against Israeli Arabs. Now, this agreement doesn't necessarily mean that it's curtains for Netanyahu. The official swearing-in ceremony is on Wednesday 9th, which gives Netanyahu about a week to try and wangle his way out of trouble. His best bet here would probably be trying to convince one of the Yamina MPs to defect. As multiple news outlets are reporting, Netanyahu won't be keen to hand over his power, and as such, he's expected to do everything within his control to destroy this tenuous and flimsy anti-Netanyahu bloc. Even if they're successful in forming a government, he's going to be a fierce detractor in opposition. So we don't know for sure if negotiations will hold, and if they do, how long the government will last containing such disparate voices. But if they're not successful, Israel will be headed towards its 5th election in just a few years. An election which is unlikely to fix this mess. Be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon to be notified every time we release videos on this topic and others. Special thanks to our Patreon backers who make videos like this possible. And if you want to see your name at the end of videos, then you too can back us on Patreon. The link to that is in the description.